I am Harriet, I am a historian of medicine. Is everyone having a good time?
Yeah!
Well, I'm going to put a stop to that, because what I'm going to be doing is talking to you a little bit about the history of syphilis. Yes! First time that's ever got a cheer. So this is something that I've been working on for about 4 years, which probably says too much about me, but essentially it boils down to me being absolutely no fun at parties or family events. Actually no, that's a lie. I'm great at parties, and I am now banned from family events. So let's find out why, and I'll tell you some facts that I like to spread around about syphilis. It is a sexually transmitted disease, you probably already know that. Many people think it's gone away, but now I'm here, like a harbinger of sexual doom, to tell you that no, it's not. It's very much still present here. Not here, well, maybe here. It's now treatable, luckily, if it is here. But 100 years ago that wasn't the case, and even if left untreated today, it can produce a really horrifying list of symptoms, which sort of starts with genital sores, continues through whole body rashes, headaches, tiredness, numbness, what else? Organ failure, blindness, bone erosion, stroke, dementia and death. I told you I'd ruin your night. So the first cases of syphilis appeared in Europe in about 1494, and it's thought that it was brought over from America by sailors returning from Christopher Columbus's infamous failure to find India. And this failure basically inaugurated a giant transatlantic game of pathogen swapsies, and in return for America sending us syphilis, we gave them measles, malaria, cholera, typhus, typhoid, smallpox, chickenpox, whooping cough, diphtheria, and the plague. So I don't know about you, but I do feel like Europe got the slightly cleaner end of that particular shitty stick. And even so, 500 years later, we chose to retaliate by sending America Piers Morgan. So syphilis, the word is quite an interesting story behind that. So it's not really called syphilis until the 19th century, but the word itself comes from an Italian poem written in 1530 by a guy called Girolamo Fracastoro. Apologies to any Italians in the audience for that pronunciation. I won't try it again. But Frank's poem basically was in 3 parts, and it was postulating on the nature, treatment and symptoms of this terrifying new disease. But he also included this 3rd part where he kind of gives this imaginative, allegorical story about how the disease emerged at all. Because this was a time in which a lot of people thought that this was a punishment from God. And Fracastoro, Fracastoro wrote that, I'm going to do it later. Fracastoro wrote that this was a punishment from the gods for man's arrogance. And he told this through the story of a young shepherd lad, whose name was Syphilis. And Syphilis was tasked by a king with taking care of 1,000 of His Majesty's royal sheep. And Syphilis was doing fine with this, he's a good shepherd, until one summer's day, and I think we can all relate to this, it was bloody hot, the sun was beating down, there was no shade to be found under the trees, there was not a breath of wind in the fields, and Syphilis's sheep started to die. Who laughed at that? Good grief. So, you'll like this next character. So, Syphilis is royally annoyed, and he starts cursing the sun. And he's pissed off, right? And he's like, "Oh, you fucking sun! Oh, it's too hot, you fiery nutter! Cool down!" I don't know why Syphilis is cockney, but just go with it. And the sun is having, you'll love the sun. The sun is having none of it, so the sun's like, "Shut it, you shepherd bastard!" The sun's cockney as well. "Oh, do what I want, yeah? I'm the fucking sun! Oh, I'm gonna make your dick fall off, Syphilis!" That was paraphrased, by the way. 16th century wording. It's the gist. So that's where syphilis comes from, according to Frank, from an angry son. And, well, to be honest, this has put the fear of God into me. I'm going on holidays next week, and I'm now thinking about, which is worse, skin cancer, or getting syphilis from the sun because you slap on a bit of Sultan on the beach. So I'm thinking about not pissing off the sun. In all seriousness, though, it is difficult to research this kind of subject and not let it affect your personal life. And aside from never being invited to weddings or nice restaurants, or really any place where there are people, I think the main area in which it's affected my life has been my romantic life. It may surprise you all to know that I am invited on very, very few second dates. Thank you. Ah, yes. So I wanted to rectify this, and after a run of first meetings where I apparently came off like some sort of venereal hobgoblin, a friend of mine was talking to me, and she said she had this brilliant idea. She said, and I'm really embarrassed I didn't think of this myself, she said, Harriet, she's really annoyed with me, Harriet, why don't you just tell them you work on something else? Alright, well a PhD doesn't prepare you for real life, okay? So I decided, alright, this is a really good idea. So a while later, I am on a date, it's going very well, it's a very nice young man, and it's going really well until he asked me, what do I do? I think, alright, action stations. And I don't want to outright lie, so I just thought, well, I'm just going to be super vague about it. So I say, I'm a researcher. Turns out that's too vague. And so he obviously says, oh, what do you research? And I think, all right, get it together, come on. And I say, oh, I'm a historian of medicine. I work on knowledge and representation of disease in the 19th century. And I congratulate myself, because I think, great, that sounds vague, it's sort of academic-y sounding, you've remembered to say a century, which is what real historians do. No further questions needed. Wrong. So this clown leans forward, it's like, oh, any particular diseases? At this point, my mind goes completely blank. I can think of one thing that's not syphilis. I'm desperately racking my brains trying to think of literally anything else, and the silence is getting longer and longer, and I cannot think of anything, and I can feel myself leaning in, and I can feel the words coming, bubbling up, and I hear myself say to this very nice gentleman, crabs? But it's not all doom and gloom, romantic-wise, with syphilis, and I want to end here by telling you a little story, one of my favourite stories from the archive. And this came after I found this really unusual item in one of my archives. This was a 19th century silver prosthetic nose. And so one of the things that syphilis can do if you leave it long enough is it can affect the bones and cartilage. And one of the common manifestations of this was that the bridge of your nose would collapse and your nose could actually literally crumble into your face. And so in the 19th century, this was basically a dead giveaway that you'd been involved in some kind of scandalous, sordid, rompy-pompy. And so people were keen to conceal this any way they could, and one of the ways they did this was through the use of these prosthetics. And I was going to try and describe this thing to you, but I actually came across a very useful 21st century equivalent recently, which I'm going to model for you. So, this incidentally I got from a 5-year-old's birthday party, shortly before I was unceremoniously ejected for telling the following story. I'm going to take that off because it is too small for me. And I'm going to put it down because it's freaking me out. So, it's basically, the 19th century one is not that far off that design. This one was worn by a young woman, it was painted to match her skin tone, it did not have the comedy moustache and eyebrows, and it was mounted on a very elegant pair of silver spectacles. And this prosthetic came with this lovely story. And it belonged to a woman who had a very damaging case of syphilis. Her nose was badly scarred, the soft palate of her mouth was damaged, and she'd been left through treatment with almost no teeth. And so she wore this thing every day, until one day she came to her doctor, and she wasn't wearing it, and she offered to sell him the nose. And he was like, yeah, definitely, because he was weird. But why? Why do you want to sell this to me? And she said this lovely thing. She told him that she'd recently married a man, and he loved her so much that he wanted her to be just herself, and he preferred her without the nose. Yes! It's lovely, isn't it? And she got so much confidence from this man who loved her so much, even though she was still very syphilitic. And it's a lovely story, it really is. So there is love stories in the archives, and it does give me a lot of hope that at some point in the 21st century, someone will ask me out on a second date. So, thank you very much, Bright Club. It sounds like I've definitely ruined your evening, so I'm going to leave you there, and thanks a lot.